last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And welcome back to Dark Matters Radio. And by the way, Dark Matters Radio is heard exclusively only on KGRA-DB, and we've been doing it here for a while, and I got to tell you, this is a pretty classy little station. Not too many other venues out there in Wi-Fi land where you can get this kind of content, just something to remind you about. Now, here we are, basically the middle of July already, who could believe it? And I happen to be situated in sunny Southern California. It's quite warm today, although not as warm as it could be, actually rather pleasant. But I got to say, I have no doubt that's why so many people want to come out here to California. The weather usually cannot be beat. God, you look around the rest of the country right now. More flash floods, rain, etc. It's terrible. And what happened down in Texas? Oh my, that was certainly a tragedy. But to get back to why we're here tonight, you know, in all the years that I have been doing UFO research, investigations, broadcasting, literally going back to 1991, when I did my first broadcast. Hard to believe, here we are, 2025, been a while. But with that being said, the one thing I have wanted to be able to prove to myself is that, hey, sometimes things do enter our solar system from interstellar space. Well, this has been proven. Okay, do you all recall Oumuamua? Well, it came through here, and there are still debates on what that object was. There are people like Dr. A.V. Loeb who maintain it's possible this may have been a ship of some kind. The thing zipped in, flew right past Earth, and the weird thing was, as it was leaving, the damn thing picked up speed. Weirdness. Very, very, very definite weirdness. So, recently, and I'm talking about the last several weeks, I heard about another object that has apparently entered the Sol system. By the way, that's our system, the Sol being our sun. And when I heard about that, I got a little excited. So who did I contact? Well, our buddy and the audio-visual expert for the Mutual UFO Network. Now, I got to say one other thing about that fellow. By the way, his name is Marc Dantonio. Friend of ours, been on this show a number of times, always has top-rated information. He'll tell you about his astronomy setup, too, I'm sure, during tonight's broadcast. But about a week or so ago, I was going through some of my network drives. Now, today, as we do this broadcast, right now, it's the 14th of July. Do you know what's staring us in the face in just a few days? No? You do? Well, I'll tell you regardless. The Apollo 11 anniversary on the 20th. That's right. 56 years ago. 56 years ago, we, the Americans, NASA, landed on the moon. Now, in 2014, and the reason I mention this will be apparent pretty soon. In 2014, after years of trying, I knew a number of producers here in town had done a lot of TV back in the 90s when the UFO thing was really at its height. And one of the producers I knew who was very much into the UFO thing was a guy by the name of Robert Kiviat, Bob Kiviat. Now, I had been hanging on Kiviat's leg for quite a while because for over 20 years, I did some very in-depth and for the most part, quiet research into lunar mysteries. Moon transient, or I should say lunar transient phenomena. As I was doing my research, I discovered that back in the 60s, prior to the touchdown, around 1967, 68, NASA, those fellows that never give you a straight answer, probably more on that too, but NASA contracted out to a group of academics to research lunar history, which ended up going back 400 years. Reports from world-class astronomers going back to the 1500s and forward. Astronomers who had described all sorts of weirdness and oddities that they had observed while looking at the moon. Now, you got to remember that back in those days, even though it was a long time ago, we did have telescopes. People did manufacture telescopes. Now, of course, they're nothing like we have today, but they did get the job done. And so NASA came out with a report called NASA Technical Report, I believe it was 277. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure Marc Dantonio will correct me. But you can find that report online, pop it into your search engine, and it'll take you to it. And you can read some of the things that, of course, were observed by these astronomers. Now, we went to the moon, okay? Now, if you were not around back then, and probably a good chunk of the audience wasn't, I recall vividly the day we landed on the moon, July the 20th, 1969. I was glued to the TV set. And my one complaint was how shitty the TV picture was. Now, of course, NASA blamed that on the distance, the cameras, blah, blah, blah. I ain't buying it. They kept it opaque, in my opinion, for a reason. Quite frankly, they didn't know what the hell they were going to see when they got up there. Later, we heard from people like Buzz Aldrin, the second human being to step foot on the lunar surface, all right, that they had been followed from Earth to the moon by a very mysterious light. Technically, a UFO followed them to the moon. Now, once they got to the moon, later Collins, the command pilot, reported seeing some weird stuff down there, including lights as he orbited the moon. One of the most controversial stories that came out of this, and I got to stress, it's not proven, but the story is that Neil Armstrong changed the channel from the channel they had been using, which was basically beaming to the world, to their very private medical channel. This is a story. Can I prove it? No. But I'm going to tell you the story. And allegedly, some people who did claim to hear his transmission said that he called back through the medical channel and said words to the effect of, "They're here. They're sitting on the edge of a crater and those babies are huge," presumably talking about craft. Now, for over 20 years, I personally did a lot of very deep, in-depth search into the lunar phenomena. I discovered, and boy, I'll tell you what, did I take a lot of crap when I first announced this, but I did get NASA to agree that I was correct. Those astronauts, when they went to the moon, had weapons. A couple of .45 caliber automatic pistols. The Army 45. Now, when I first discovered that, I got to tell you, I was shocked, didn't believe it. But I did call public affairs at NASA. Told them, of course, who was calling, UFO Magazine. And after they got done laughing, I hit them with this. And they talked all around it. But finally, the person I talked to said, well, actually, yeah, they did have firearms on board. Well, okay. Why? Why would you take a .45 pistol to the moon? Well, we were concerned that when they came back from the moon, if something happened and they landed in some place like a jungle, they would have a means to protect themselves. And I thought about that for just a second. I said, wait a minute. They've never landed during the whole Apollo program, never landed on the Earth. They always land in the ocean. What would make you think they would go to the jungle? Well, make a long story short, they had no coherent answer. But why do I bring all this up? I should say I am trying to plan a basic UAP Crossfire show right around the 20th of July, the 56th anniversary. We'll see if that happens or not. But I sent this video, Aliens on the Moon, The Truth Revealed, out to them. This is what I watched last week. First time I had watched it since it originally aired on the Sci-Fi Channel in 2014. At that point, it was the 45th anniversary of the touchdown, Apollo 11. Now we're approaching the 56th. So just to give you a heads up on what may happen. Now, with all of that being said, let me bring on my co-host, Mark Center, and Gary Kissel, and of course, our special return guest, Mr. Marc Dantonio. Mark, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Hey, thank you. How you doing, man? What's going on with you guys?
Good. I'm gonna grill you a little bit later on tonight's show. Mark was on that documentary too. Aliens on the Moon, The Truth Revealed. And when I mentioned it to him, God, I wish you could have seen the look on his face. So well, guys, how y'all doing?
That was a tough one. I'll tell you about it.
How you guys doing? Mark Center.
Hey, it's beautiful weather. The weather's not frightening in California. It's beautiful, and I love it. And Don loves to run his AC all day long while complimenting the weather. It's a beautiful thing.
No. I just turned it on right before the show because it was getting a little hot in here. And I'm going to be planted in this chair for the next 2 hours. So I figured, it might as well be comfy, you know?
It's been great. And I will say, Don, I started to watch, just as an offside here, I started to watch that new LA police show thing with Maggie Q. She's not my girlfriend, but I will watch.
You'd like her to be, wouldn't you? You'd like her to be.
And my wife, I think, would give me that maybe if we weren't so into each other. But she can be in anything, and I like it. So.
Is she your hall pass?
Well, I would never have one of those, but one can dream.
How about you, Mr. Kissel?
Well, we celebrated the whole Apollo thing today by actually going back to the original 7, and we did The Right Stuff this morning, which was fun to talk about. I love that movie, and I'm excited that we're coming up on the anniversary for the Apollo mission, man. Apollo 11.
Allegedly,
yeah. We never went to the moon.
What do you think? What do all you guys think about that?
I can't stand people that are deniers. I can't stand them.
Coming from the guy that has not flat week checked. Okay. I have that same T-shirt. Okay?
Oh, great!
It is a great shirt, And I got to tell you, I was firmly planted in the Apollo program as a kid because I bought into everything they did, and unlike some folks, we did go to the moon. I'm sure of it. I know that there was billions of dollars spent getting there, and I do know.
Not to mention lives, Mark.
That's correct. As a matter of fact, I was given a compliment one time when one of the former Apollo controllers in Mission Control heard me tell someone to basically shut their big fat mouths about saying we didn't go to the moon. I said that's disrespectful to all the people that gave their lives to this project.
Like
and then this
Chaffee
guy,
and Grissom.
Yeah, that's right. And then this guy came forward and he said, I want you to know that was very nice of you to say that because I was in Mission Control on Apollo 1, and I know exactly how everybody felt. And it was just, to me, that was a low point. I was just a kid, remember? Literally, I was 9 when they landed on the moon. I routinely told people we go to the moon. I went to a university to get my degree in astronomy from a university that actually made the retroreflector array that's on the moon that you get the reflections of the laser beams off of so we can actually get the accurate distance to the moon. Okay. That array was built at my university, for the Apollo program. So I know that we went there. I can see the remnants on the surface of the moon using the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter Quick Map, where you can zoom in and get like this close to the moon and see lunar descent modules. You can see the tracks. You can see the Alsep experiment. You can see the shadow of the flag in many cases. So, yes, we did go there. And unfortunately, in the later generations that didn't have a space program, it's easy to dismiss past achievements.
Thank you, Barack Obama.
Yep.
I didn't think I sounded like him.
You said those generations that didn't have a space program.
Brother.
Well, that's
It was
true.
Obama who shut down, for among other things, the shuttle.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, you're.
Come on, Dantonio, wake up!
I'm getting with it. You see, it's my ears are a little loose here. Okay, no, as you point out, looking inward to solve inner crises on our planet and our world, I get it. Okay, I get it. Going to Mars right now, that's a great idea, but it's something that I agree we're not ready to do, and we should actually keep pushing the technology forward. I'm with that 100%, but we shouldn't be allocating tens of billions of dollars to do this at this point. If we have a proven goal, I'll give you an example: helium-3, an isotope in the lunar soil. If we can come up with a good plan to mine it, a good plan to bring rock strata back from the moon that contain it, and then extract it, or better yet, do it there, and then use that to make fuel, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea.
Originally, I wanted to get you on here to talk about this new interstellar visitor, but
yes,
we got a little sidetracked here, but I'm glad we did, because Marc Dantonio, I sent you my paper I wrote on disclosure. Did I not?
I think you did. That was about 6 months ago you sent that?
Yeah, did you read it?
I started going through it, and of course life gets in the way, and I didn't get to finish all of it on that. But I will promise you I shall.
Okay, well, the reason I mentioned that, basically, what I was trying to do was to present a case using my not only military but my law enforcement background to structure this paper about a number of things that scream to me, weirdness here in the air, about that going to the moon, a number of other things. Now, we left the moon, for all intents and purposes, in December of 1972.
Yep.
Okay, that was Apollo 17. Now, regardless what these conspiracy mongers try to claim about things like Apollo 18, 19, and 20, pure crap, in my opinion. We did, however, go back to the moon, but it was all very hush, hush. Now, what am I talking about? I am talking about something that was a Department of Defense, DMOD mission in association with NASA. That was the Clementine mission in 1994. Now, 1972, we left. We finally go back unmanned, but using the highest grade technology we had at that point. Think of the KH-11 spy satellite, an object that could photograph the buttons on your shirt from outer space. Okay? This thing is, God, you have no idea the technology that was in this device. And we're flying around the moon again in 1994, totally remapping it. Now, what did I miss? Because I had to miss something. Why would we, after all those years, go back and completely rephotograph the moon? I knew and know the guy that was the deputy director on that, and he told me that all of those photographs, ladies and gentlemen, over 2 million photographs were taken, and they're all locked up behind closed doors. Why? Now,
Actually-
I have my, okay, and now I'll get to you, Mark, but I
Okay.
have my suspicions. In Vietnam, when I was a soldier in Vietnam, and I was involved with military intelligence, okay? When we had a suspicion about a certain area or location or place where we suspected the enemy was doing something probably nefarious, we would send reconnaissance aircraft over there. Take photographs, okay? See what the hell was up. Come back, come home, have the analyst analyze the pictures. Then generally, they would wait a while and they go back and rephotograph it again. Was that location being built up? Did they have, for example, and this is, I'm pulling this out of the air, did they build barracks for soldiers? Do they have vehicles there? Do they have a landing pad? That kind of stuff, all right? You know, anybody that's ever watched a war movie on TV, you know what the hell I'm talking about. Well, that's what I think happened with Clementine, in part. They know something is up there, a presence, and I'll go to the mat with anybody that doubts that. I'll go to the mat. There is a presence up there. But what the hell are they up to? 1972. I'm sure they got a lot of pictures. Somebody got it up there, got a hair up their backside. We got to go back and see what else they may be up to. And they did, Clementine. But all of those photographs, with the exception of a very few, were sequestered. And the photographs that they did release are those typical NASA bullshit photographs. Muddy, okay, blurred, dark gray, light gray. You can't make out nothing from it. And I've seen some good NASA moon photographs. Mark, do you wish to disagree?
I wish to add to this. Not 2 hours ago, I was on the phone with the guy who built the Clementine camera. Okay. The guy who worked at the laboratory, who, with his team, built the Clementine Lunar Orbiter camera. And the thing, because one of my observatories is on his land. Okay. Now, what's interesting is Clementine was built for several purposes. All right. First of all, it was meant to be a technology demonstration as well. Let me explain. They basically built a camera that could have the resolution it did, which was exceptional for its time. The camera was the size of a sugar cube. Okay. That was a prerequisite, and that's how big the Clementine camera was. The sensor, size of a sugar cube. At the time, unheard of. That was their technology demonstration. On top of that, it did scientific observations, and the camera had the ability to do observations of both the moon and this near-Earth asteroid called 1620 Geographos. Okay. Now, that said, Clementine's capability, and by the way, you can see all the Clementine data, at least. Is there some hidden? Maybe so. Okay, I'm not going to doubt that, Don, because I don't know. But if you go
I do, because the guy told me, and it was John Brandenburg,
I know
who told me that they were not allowed to see any of that information, either him or the director. It went to a totally separate department, and the stuff was not available for view by even the guy that was in charge of Clementine.
But isn't this the same John Brandenburg that states that with authority that Mars suffered a nuclear war?
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm. And he also proved it, at least in part, by the elements that he discovered.
Xenon. Yep. I know.
Okay. So you disagree with that? There's only one other place that comes from.
No,
That's a nova.
No, I disagree. I disagree with his findings, but you know what? Another show, maybe with him on. Okay, I think I did this once.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I thought we did. Okay, anyway, the other thing that Clementine was going to do, which it did, was obtain multispectral imagery of the moon for the first time. Multispectral imagery means the visible spectrum we can see, ultraviolet, infrared, and all these other wavelengths that we have not previously looked in. And looking in the infrared and looking in the ultraviolet gives us clues as to other elements that are there and other compounds. And it's also was designed to study the mineralogy on the moon, which it did very well. It also did, I think, altimetry from minus 60 to north 60 in latitude on the moon as well. If I'm wrong, I can work with that later. But it also did gravity studies on the near side as well. So all these things could be very important to what you're saying, Don, I guess. Okay, but I will say it did provide for us the first look at the lunar surface, which actually included the lunar poles, and it was the satellite that actually discovered for the first time that we might have permanently dark craters that might have water in them. So there's a lot of things that Clementine was designed for and utilized for. And so it did something that no other probe at the time could do. Study the mineralogy, go multispectral, etc. So Clementine was groundbreaking, and the Clementine data is on the LRO Quick Map. You can actually select a layer that overlays Clementine data, so you can actually see the Clementine results. That's LRO Quick Map, and I teach people how to use the LRO Quick Map, and I've done so many times with the SkyTour live stream. The observatory.
Well, you obviously are familiar with NASA TR 277, right?
TR 277.
Yeah.
I don't know by that name. What's that?
Well, that's the NASA report on lunar phenomena that NASA contracted before the touchdown.
Oh, that report.
NASA technical report. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't really know a whole lot about that. I just look at the scientific data that was the results of like, say, Clementine and lunar reconnaissance and Kaguya, Japanese and other probes, but I don't know what that NASA technical report talks about. I haven't seen
lunar phenomena. 400 years of it from astronomers all around the globe. No, well, it's really something you ought to check out.
I will. I've actually seen individual stories and write-ups on things like the shard on the moon, which I think Bob Kvyat asked me to look at for aliens on the moon or whatever. And doing that show was very difficult because he did it here, in my studio space. And what happened was I was supposed to have all the lunar images when they showed up at 9 a.m. here, where I am in Connecticut. I was supposed to have all the lunar images to study. And Bob was on the phone almost entirely that time. My cell phone bill that day was outrageous. And so then what I did was I kept asking, what's this lunar imagery? Come on, Bob, I've got to get the lunar imagery. And he said, well, okay, it's coming. I'm getting it all cleared, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Well, anyway, in the process, I ended up getting one photo, and it was of a lunar valley. Okay, you had a peak and a trough and a peak. But and then what he saw was, there was a peak, a trough, and a peak. So this was lit, the top of each peak, and then there was a trough on the other side of this end one. Okay, so this here looked like a bridge. Like this was all dark underneath. This was a lunar bridge going over this area. He said, "Look, a lunar bridge."
Was that the Mare Crisium crater?
I don't remember, But I will say Mare Crisium's a sea, a lava sea. But that particular image, I actually built a functional model of it in my shop. And I showed with the lighting how this was actually just a vast saddle ridge that was illuminated, okay, on one side at the peak, and then down below on the other side, it was dark on this side, dark on this side. And so the center was lit. And it did give the illusion with Apollo photography, which was, of course, very high contrast film now, okay, that this was a bridge going over this empty, dark chasm. And in fact, it was just an exposure set for that bright arc that was at the top of the saddle ridge, and you did not see the shadows down below. I showed that. I recreated this exact object on the moon, showed 2 different photos of it, and they were in there watching with me in my shop. They saw the saddle ridge in my camera. It looked like a bridge, but when you looked at it with your eyes, you could see the shadows inside, but the camera settings made it so it looked like it was just an arch, okay? Now, keep that in mind. I spent all this time building that model to make sure they understood this was an optical illusion and truly a trick of light and shadow for real, okay? Some are, some aren't. 2 things, on this particular case aren't true at once, okay? And I showed him that, and he looked at it and he goes, yeah, no. I go, no, what? He says, yeah, that's not going to be in the show. We're not going to put that in the show. Oh, well, that's the truth. Yeah, we're not going to put that in the show. So I had that to deal with as well, okay? And the actual moon images that I got, I didn't actually get the moon images they wanted me to analyze. You ready? They got there at 9 a.m. I didn't get the images I was supposed to analyze until 10 o'clock that night. They were there the whole day. And I was tired and beat. And it probably shows, I think it was James Oberg. Remember James Oberg from NASA?
Oh, yeah.
He called me and said, he goes, you're the red shirt guy. Because I was actually wearing a red shirt, for one of those segments. He goes, you're a red shirt. I go, I know, James, I know. Okay. So it left a kind of a bad taste, But Bob Kvyat's a very nice guy. And he says, oh, you're a great analyst. You got to love it. The best guy.
What was the problem? They never got the photographs to you.
I never found out. But I think that it was. I don't know that he was trying to get them all cleared. I mean, why work at the last minute when you got a film crew all the way across the country in Connecticut with your what they call the talent or the subject matter expert? Why would they wait until then? I don't know. But everybody was tired and nobody wanted to film anything. So that's why I said, we're not going to do the Valley. That's a whole nother camera setup, blah, blah, blah. But that was going to, take care of much of the problem. So I don't remember how many images I studied. Many of them I studied never got in the show because they certainly weren't worth it.
Big D, how many countries have taken subsequent high quality images of the moon and based on regular Joe kind of technological history from Clementine to the newest, what sort of jumps were made on clarity, resolution, etc.?
Yeah, every mission showed better and better clarity. Okay, for instance, Japan had a probe around the moon called Selene, Seline, and Selene took some gorgeous shots, and you could literally sit there and watch the moon roll by you as Selene was going over the moon. It was just stunning. Okay, the Kaguya probe actually did what are called digital elevation maps, which I use. Okay, and I print them on my 3D printer, which is right back there. That thing with the yellow cabinet on it. Okay, that's a very, very high resolution printer, and I get prints that are stunning of lunar craters, and I basically print out any crater somebody wants and I send it anywhere they want, and give it to them, and I can do Mars with that. I can do Ceres, Vesta, the asteroids. It's pretty cool. So this data, the Kaguya data, gave us these DEMS, digital elevation maps, and Mars has the HiRISE mission, which gave data, laser altimetry data which showed us the depth of craters and the height of mountains, and so we can actually get those maps as well from that, and that's all available to folks. If you look up NASA Trek, you'll get the NASA Treks, TREKS, and you can see you can go to all these different planets and do that. The one planet that's missing from that, but I do have access to, is Pluto. All the Pluto data I was able to get. So that's interesting that Pluto has this data as well, being the farthest planet in our solar system.
Did any of the subsequent better quality, higher res imagery answer some of the questions of the previous over contrasty, can't tell what's there? Did some of that absolutely answered?
Yeah, absolutely. One of them was the face on Mars. That's Cydonia.
Right.
The Cydonia face looked like some kind of a Egyptian pharaoh or monkey or whatever. And right away, looking at it, I noticed, even as a younger guy, looking at the face on Mars, it looked like there wasn't really another eye. It was dark, but the brain was creating the other eye, the pareidolia thing. And so when they got the image of this mountain later, you could see, in fact, what I did was actually, again, for one of the shows, I actually made a model of the face on Mars based on the proper view, okay, the one we know it looks like, and I lit it in my studio. I lit it and showed it looking just like the Viking face on Mars, okay, because of the way the imprints were. And as long as you had the contrast set on the camera just so, that was a face on Mars. Put more light on it, and now it was that hill like you saw in that photo. So I was able to definitively show that the face on Mars could have been a case of the light and shadow thing again. And that's an age-old thing. Oh, it's not just a trick of light and shadow. Well, guess what? It can be, and it was. In several cases, that's where that whole thing came from. The fact that it did have tricks of light and shadow in some of the imagery. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it is for everything, okay? There was another one on Mars, the DNM pyramid, okay, the DM pyramid, okay? Oh, wow, look at that pyramid shape. Well, actually, the pyramid shape is somewhat of a natural landform, and we see it here. And the Sphinx shape, that is a shape that is reminiscent of something called a yardang, and it's a wind-sculpted shape. If you look up yardang, Y-A-R-D-A-N-G, okay, you'll see little sphinxes wherever you see them. And was that possibly the impulse or the inspiration to make the actual Sphinx? Maybe, I don't know. So, and we see yardangs on other planets too, on Mars, okay? We see scallop dunes on Mars, which look really interesting. Now, I'm of the opinion that of all the planets in our solar system, the planet that is most capable of life other than the Earth is Mars, okay? So I think missions to Mars are important, but I do believe in something called telepresence. Now, telepresence is very important. It doesn't put any human lives at risk. Humans require sustenance. They require water and other, oxygen, of course, and an atmosphere. So if we can send a robot that doesn't need that to another planet, then we should. It turns out that the chief engineer in charge of all the outer space robotic missions is a guy named Gentry Lee at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. That's the guy that got me into astronomy. When I was 9, I wrote a space station plan, because who doesn't do that at age 9? And I sent it to him at NASA. I didn't know who I was sending it to. And he sent me back this giant box, which I labeled Space Box, model kits, mission patches, books, brochures, and a letter, which said that I looked over your plan. I wanted to go through some things with you. And he went through and he every page of my space station plan was like 10 pages. Okay. He made comments that were very constructive. I actually thought about using a carbon filter to get rid of carbon dioxide, and I didn't just think of it. I was reading about chemistry in my library, asking for the grown-up books upstairs instead of the child books with the little chairs. I wanted the grown-up books, and they let me look at them and let me take them out. Okay, my mother vouched for me because my mother and father were well known in Plainville, Connecticut, where I grew up. So I was able to do that, and I learned about carbon and how to get rid of CO2 from the air. And I thought, well, I can see we use carbon scrubbers on the space station. And in fact, that's kind of what the Apollo astronauts did with Apollo 13, isn't it?
Did they credit you?
No, that wasn't my idea. That was NASA's idea. Okay, but they made a carbon scrubber to get Apollo 13's carbon dioxide levels down so they could get the astronauts home safely. Okay, and it was crude, but it worked. Well, I thought that might be great for the space station. I thought that would be kind of a cool thing. Back then, when and Apollo 13 came later. But when I heard about the carbon scrubbers on Apollo 13, I went, I know about that. I did that. And I falsely gave myself credit for it, but it certainly wasn't me. Trust me. Okay, it was a well-known thing. Everybody knew that, but I didn't. I was 9, or 9.5 or 10. I think it was like closer to 10. Well, anyway, I'm diverging from your questions. I'm sorry. But I do want to say that when I look at the accomplishments of the Apollo program and the accomplishments of subsequent programs, we have to understand that our technology is great. Our technology is wonderful. We can do some really high-res stuff. The Vera Rubin Space Telescope just came online, and it's got the largest camera on planet Earth. I applied to be the outreach astronomer for that project, but they wanted somebody different, whatever. I guess I didn't have the right look. I don't know what it is. Well, the bottom line is they, being that that's the biggest camera on the planet, it's produced some very beautiful imagery. So we're leapfrogging. Each technology is leapfrogging the other. Example, the James Webb Space Telescope. The mirror is 21 feet in diameter. Why didn't we launch the Hubble with a 21-foot diameter mirror? Do you know the answer? I do know the answer. The reason is because a rocket is only as wide. And so they had to put a complete circular mirror. No matter how you turn a mirror, you still need the full width of that mirror, one dimension or another. Okay? And rocket bodies being just over 8 feet or so meant that we could put an 8-foot mirror inside of a rocket. And that was our max.
Well, Mark, a quick question about that, the James Webb.
Yeah.
This thing was prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. Okay, I was excited when they sent that thing up and it worked. Okay,
Yeah.
I was ecstatic about that. But my question is, basically, I heard it said that if something happened to that, okay, it broke down, whatever, that we could not get to it to fix it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about 1 million miles away. It's at a Lagrange point, which is
right.
like a parking spot in space where all the gravitational forces sort of kind of balance out.
But
Not
we
really,
couldn't
though.
get out there?
Nah, it's being 1 million miles away. We've only ever gone as humans to the moon, 240,000 miles away.
Right.
We have to go more than almost 5 times that distance to get to it, and no humans have ever done that yet. So, could we get a probe out there? Yes. As a matter of fact, there is a planned refueling mission to refuel the James Webb when it runs out of the fuel that it's currently using to hold station. Now, it uses a minimal amount, and it's actually making this little kind of elliptical orbit, And this whole elliptical orbit thing that we're talking about, okay, this is interesting because, Earth's orbit is circular, but slightly elliptical, okay? So it's not quite circular. And the James Webb is moving in this little elliptical orbit out there in order to hold station at this Lagrange point. Now, because it's not perfect. It's not perfect. You can't just find a magical spot where you can just turn off everything and just stay perfectly still at the same spot. You can't do it. Okay, because remember, the James Webb is still orbiting the sun. And as it's going around the sun, it's moving pretty fast to go around the sun, but it has to hold position in that orbit a little bit, because as it moves around the sun, other planets are passing before it. It's passing other planets outward. So it's getting tugged on by various planets, and eventually those could move it way off. So it has to have the ability to station keep a little bit. So they put it in this, they make it go this slightly weirdly elliptical orbit where it's not going around anything that has gravity. It's just sort of like following this little path where it's sitting out there and moving in that path, but it's using fuel to kind of do that. Little nudges here and there. It's got enough for a number of years, quite a lot of years. I think it's 10, but it's going to run out eventually, and then it's going to end up going off the reservation of the Lagrange point, and then who knows where it might go at that point. So there's a mission to refuel the James Webb Telescope robotically, and that could make it out there. Keep in mind that James Webb had to have 340 different discrete events go perfectly right for it to unveil and do what it had to do, and every single one of them worked. Now, keep in mind that the Hubble with an 8-foot mirror is not the what was that, Jerry?
I was gesturing to Don 4 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought you were gonna say 304 or something. I thought you had the number for me.
Oh no,
They know how I screw up the break practically every show.
Yeah, when it comes to your numbers, I will never challenge.
Oh no, but see, if I say something like that, or like a 300 and something, I don't mind being corrected.
Is that your chirp, Mark?
Oh, I'm afraid that is.
I was wondering whose it was.
It's not that my smoke alarms don't need batteries. I already changed them. It's the end of life alarm from the smoke alarm, because they just turned 10, and that's the end of their life.
End of their life or your life?
It better not end mine, but I'll tell you right now, they're gonna end their own, because I'm getting like this with them.
I was going to say a very racist joke, but I'm glad I didn't.
I'm certainly glad you did.
Okay.
So let me just say real quick then, because I know we only have 3 minutes left, 2.5. If you look at the James Webb, Hubble had an 8-foot mirror, big diameter, right? Big for us.
Right.
Vistas beyond our imagination revealed to us. But the James Webb now, we wanted a larger mirror, but we had to do something different. So what we did was made hexagonal mirror segments, arrayed them together, and then made them fold up on each other so we could fit them in that same rocket body. And then once it got up there, it had to unfold and get everything aligned. Now, telescopes are very sensitive creatures. When you unfold and align and got everything going, you have to be able to collimate the telescope. You have to be able to get it so that the mirrors all aim at the same point on that secondary mirror, which is up here, and you got the main mirror down here aiming at the secondary mirror. Every one of those mirror segments, I think there's 18 of them or something. Every one of those mirror segments has to aim at the same spot on that secondary mirror to get the proper image. And so effectively, so they had to make sure that all worked after a launch where the spacecraft's going like this, for hours and hours and hours. It's vibrating like crazy, and it
just made me nauseous, Mark.
As a matter of fact, that's probably how the James Webb fell. But the result, Don, the thing is. The result was we got a telescope out there 1 million miles away that's literally 100 times more capable than the Hubble Space Telescope as a result.
It is amazing.
Yeah, and it doesn't see anything in the visible spectrum like we see. It sees everything out in the infrared, way out there in the red, beyond anything you can see. So what's the value? Well, the value is that to see the value, we have to go back to the 1920s and Edwin Hubble. He discovered that galaxies further away from us are receding from us faster and faster. So the farther out they are, the faster they're moving away from us. And when they're moving fast away from us, it means their light is getting shifted. Just like sound gets shifted. When it's coming towards you, it's raising in pitch, and when it goes away, it lowers in pitch. That's why you hear when a car goes by or something like that. Okay. So that said, light does the same thing, but changes color. There's no sound associated. When it comes closer, it turns blue, like my lights. And when it goes away, it turns red. So you can imagine that if something's moving fast enough, far enough away from us, that the light and the data in that light is all in the infrared, way out beyond anything we can see. And that's exactly what the James Webb was designed to see, is galaxies and the early universe that we could never, ever see until this point.
Have they seen back at least 13 point whatever billion years?
Well, I mean, we can see 13.6 to the cosmic microwave background, right? And we can see that with our regular radio telescopes. But we can see basically galaxies. Whose smoke alarm was that?
That was Bailey the Beagle. Hey, look, we are almost at the break time. So we're going to take care of that. And when we come back, I promise, cross my heart, we're going to talk about that interstellar visitor. This is Dark Matters Radio right here on KGRA-DB. I'll see if I can get my little Beagle girl settled down, and we'll see you after the break. Stick around. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll tell you, during the break, just thinking about the technology that Marc Dantonio is describing with the James Webb telescope. Mark, that is actually, my God, that goes beyond amazing, doesn't it?
It does. When you consider how much had to go right for it to deploy, unfurl its basically its shield, its sun shield. There's multiple layers of material at the bottom of the satellite, and that's always facing the sun, because the infrared sensor is so incredible. Remember, infrared is heat, okay? Heat you can't see. You can see what it does to the air coming to you from the distance on the road, right? You can see that because it actually is this. It causes the air to be disrupted and break up. And when that happens, it's something that you can then visualize. So the James Webb being able to see in the infrared allows us to see the early universe in a way like we've never been able to do, but have always theorized might be there. We can also look into dense, dark clouds of dust in the universe and see many more stars that are there that we never knew were there, that we suspected might be there. You know, I've always said this before, and it's sort of a romantic thing. Life was born in the dark. And there's a whole bunch of ways you guys can take that, I'm sure. I knew you were going there. Okay. Life began in the dark.
You know, I've always been transfixed by astronomy. And I got to say that now, Mark, I'm about as novice as you can be. Novice. I mean, I know just enough to realize how stupid I am. But is it not true that Edwin Hubble, in the last century, the 20th century, around in the early 1920s, was convinced that our galaxy, the Milky Way, just our galaxy alone, was the universe? We did not realize what was out there. Is that correct?
I think they knew there was more out there, but we didn't have data on much more. Now, yes, I have a book here published in 1864, first edition, okay, and it's called The Architecture of the Heavens in a Series of Letters to a Lady, because back then, astronomy wasn't considered a real science. It was equated to astrology, you know. And as people say, you know, oh, you're an astrologer? Yes, if you want your palm red, I'll get you the paint, red paint. But so astronomers were fighting this battle to separate astrology from astronomy. And in so doing, they had to speak flowery and in a series of letters to a lady in order to explain the universe from their point of view. And this particular astronomer of the time, Nicol, he was N-I-C-H-O-L, he wrote this book to describe their understanding of the universe at that point. And it included looking at these nebulae that were found every so often, that were these extended nebulae that had weird shapes. That's in the 1860s. Okay. Well, those extended nebulae with those weird shapes were spiral galaxies, island universes, if you will, on their own. And so we live in an island universe of the Milky Way, right? But we didn't really understand that until we could study where these objects were going and where they came from. And with the advent of more technology, better technology, like Mark said earlier about better technology that could give us more answers, well, better technology, better telescopes, and better imaging allowed us to differentiate the difference between what was a gaseous nebula within our galaxy up here and something way, way out here, which is what the distant galaxies were. And then we had to figure out how far way out here was. Okay. And that's a whole nother thing that goes to what's called the cosmological distance ladder, using phenomena that we only started to understand later that could help us figure out distances to these extremely far objects. And what's interesting now is that amateur astronomers, okay, people that are interested in astronomy, like you, Don, okay, could actually contribute to the science even if you have what's called an amateur telescope, because now there are capabilities to study these distances I'm talking about with amateur equipment. So for instance, in our telescope we have down in Benson, Arizona, okay, on a mountaintop I share with 9 other professional astronomers. I'm adding what's called a spectrograph, to our lineup of instruments that's going to allow us to look at how things are made, the compositions. I could look at reflected sunlight off the moon and get its spectrum. And from that, I could figure out what's in the lunar soil. I could also see the sun's spectrum reflected back minus whatever the lunar soil absorbed. And that's really cool to do. So real science can be done by ordinary people these days, and it's so much fun to interface with them and share with them that the universe is opening up like a nut. We never knew what was inside the nut. Now we're parting the shells of the nut, and we can actually start to see inside. And this is a very, very exciting time to be around, to be honest with you. I'd rather not be around when we have all the answers. I'd rather be around when we're learning the answers.
Well, let's talk about that. Learning some answers.
Yeah.
Oumuamua showed up in 2017.
Yep.
And people are still talking about it.
Yes.
Well, now we have something else that recently flying into our solar system.
It's
into
3i Atlas.
System of Sol. Huh?
3i Atlas, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it. Now, when I talked to you last week, when I invited you to come on so we could discuss this,
yep,
you told me that you were going to see if you could get any photographs of this. Did you manage?
I did.
Excellent.
Yeah, you should have it. Bill made it.
It should pop up any second.
There you go.
There we go.
Now,
hey, look, a bunch of dots.
A bunch of dots. Now you have this as an overlay. So you can't zoom in all the way. If I could present, I could probably present this, and then I could show it to you in a much larger format and then zoom in on this thing. Because I have to show you the reality of astronomy, all right? And that's something that I think is important. So if you can bring that, okay, this is...
There we go.
Okay, is this the one that I've got here? Well, I'm presenting this image. Can you zoom in on that at all? You can't see my cursor. I can do something a little different. I have to stop presenting. All right, so let me do something else here. Oh, I want to share part of my screen. I'm going to share a window, okay? And this window is going to have this object in it. And I believe this is it. Yes, that's it. So I'm going to say allow. And now you guys can bring that one up, and you'll see my cursor. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
This is the image I took. This is a region near the Sagittarius Milky Way. Okay. And we're going to zoom in on this section right here. All right. And this little guy right here, that dash. Okay. You see dots and you see a dash. Okay. That's 3i Atlas. That is.
You're shitting me.
That's the big deal that everybody's talking about. Let's zoom out a little bit, okay, and show you. Okay, where is it again? Exactly. Okay, it's this little tiny dash right up here. It's right inside that little box.
And what made that stand out amongst the other little tiny dashes?
I'm glad you asked, because I can show you.
You took the words out of my mouth, Mark Center.
Because I can't see you and you're not here.
So if you take a look
Are you
at
sure someone didn't just sneeze on the lens?
I'm quite positive. Okay, but that's a very good question. Now, first of all, these dots, these really, really bright dots here, these are, for that particular camera shot, these are dead pixels, okay? All right, so that's what those are. But I'm glad this one is here, because it points out to the upper right. You can see this dash. See that little dash right there? If you look elsewhere, you don't see any dashes. You see fuzzy dots. We're zoomed way in to an area of the Sagittarius Milky Way, okay? And I'm focusing only on, and I'm using a specific filter called a radian filter to eliminate everything and show you just these stars. And you can see this little dash. Now, let me explain what's happening here. What's happening in this particular image is that this is a time exposure. I'm letting the camera stay open and light keeps falling. Well, the stars don't move, but objects that are moving out there do. And they leave a little trail. And that's how we differentiate things that are moving.
Okay.
We leave the camera open and we take a longer exposure. You'll see we have dots everywhere. We have this one dash right there. Okay.
Going movement. Right.
Yeah. So this dash is the area. Now, as far as how did I know where to look, I basically calibrated the telescope or set its coordinate system to be very, very fine and be able to go and center up these objects. And I drove right to the position, had the telescope drive to the position of where this object was at the time, down in Sagittarius constellation, summertime constellation. In fact, the heart of the Milky Way, the center of our Milky Way is kind of nearby. So there's an awful lot of detail in here that's not showing. And this object right here, very, very dim. But this is what's causing all the stir. And you might say, well, geez, why couldn't it be bright like this guy over here, like that star, or maybe like this? Why couldn't it be a cool color like that, Well, because it's not. It's just a very dim object this size, and it's somewhat small. So, it's faint, it's interesting, but there is what's called 3i/Atlas. It is how
was it detected, Mark, to begin with?
It was detected using the small planet search system. I believe we're talking about Atlas. And so what happens is this object, when it was detected, we have to talk about orbits a little bit. We have circular orbits. We have elliptical orbits. Okay. We have parabolic orbits. And we have hyperbolic orbits. And what's the difference? Well, a circle has a certain characteristic. It's called an eccentricity. How circular is this object? It's 0. It's a perfect circle. Okay. If you have something between 0 and 1, it means you're going less circular, going more elliptical. So all orbits in the solar system have an eccentricity that's above 0 and less than 1. Okay. However, if we see something come into the solar system or come by the sun and we measure its orbital movement and we see that its motion is going to take it to something that has an eccentricity or a circularness greater than 1, it means that it's not something that is in our solar system effectively. It's local to our solar system because it's coming through, but it winds its way back out. The 3 in front of the I means interstellar. The 3 in front of the I, okay, in this indication, it's 3I/Atlas. Okay, the 3I means the 3 means the third one seen. Okay, the first one was Oumuamua. The second one was Comet Borisov, which was an interstellar comet that came through. And the third one is this guy here, which has yet to have a name. Now, I want to.
Is that why they changed the name?
They may change the name of this. I'm not sure if it's already happened. But 3I Atlas is the technical name. The IAU, International Astronomical Union, designated name for it right now. That may change. But we got to also, Oumuamua, let's go back to that for a minute. What shape do you think Oumuamua is from any of you?
Well, it appeared to be a cigar shape.
Right. What do you say, Mark?
A turd.
I'm not topping Mark's comment now.
Okay. Well, Oumuamua is actually a pancake shape. It's a flat disc shape. Okay.
Well, that's the debate. Is it a flat disc or is it a fat elongated? Because
it's
only
actually
seen it from one side.
We haven't seen it at all. Okay, there's no photographs of Oumuamua. Okay, we haven't seen Oumuamua. Oumuamua was already on its way out when it was detected. Okay, and so the shape was inferred, and the shape was inferred to be a pancake, and it was initially thought to be like 700 meters long by 70 meters in diameter. They thought it was a long spindle. That never made sense to me. There's no long spindles in the universe like this. And as it turned out, this particular object was more of a pancake shape, but it was thin. So from one particular perspective, it looks like that, but it's rotating and changing its orbital shape, which could imply that when it put a flat side toward the sun, that solar radiation pushed it faster. Okay, which could explain the solar sail approach. Now, I know Avi. I mean, we've been on several programs together. Okay, Avi and I have spoken, and there's a lot to his merit. I have to say, he came under fire for suggesting this could have been extraterrestrial as an intelligence. But is he wrong? The reason he said that was because we can't deny the possibility that this was an extraterrestrial object. We can't deny it. We can't prove it either. And he knows that. He never said it was extraterrestrial. He never said it's alien. He said we can't deny that it could be. He's simply trying to open up the discussion more. And academia can be harsh, and academia can be arrogant. You know,
academia can be fascist.
Well, academia can have all kinds of problems. You're right. Okay. The head of my observatory when I was getting my degree, and I had this argument, which you guys may have heard, but for the audience, I'll be quick. I said I think it's a populated universe, and that became the title of my book, The Populated Universe. Okay. And he said, well, why do you say that? And I went through, well, we're made of carbon. Carbon's the fourth most abundant element in the universe. Oxygen's the third. So there's going to be a love affair between carbon and oxygen. Carbon bonds with more things than anything else in the periodic table. And I went on and on. I said, we're bilaterally symmetric. We're the symmetry that's in all life forms on the planet. And he's going, He says, are you quite done? And this, I went on with that for like 5 minutes. And I said, yeah. He said, okay, get back on your project and leave Captain Kirk to us. Okay. So the arrogance of science, the arrogance of science pervades, discussions sometimes. And I told him that I thought it was a populated universe. Now, that was 1983 or 1982 when I had that discussion with him. 1988, we confirmed the first exoplanet, planet around another star. And I went into the observatory, opened the door, and this part I haven't.
Nanner.
Yeah, right. I was thinking, oh, man. I was thinking I'm going to have to remind him of our discussion. He may not even remember it. Okay. And old wooden floors, you could smell the old books in the library, the ones that I used for years to study and learn about the history of astronomy and how we calculated distances in the old days versus now, etc. And as I'm walking across the creaky floor, I walk into the office and I hear him on the phone bellowing to somebody about something. And I'm waiting for him to get off the phone. Instead I just sort of peek around the corner and look at him. And he was on the telephone. You may remember those U-shaped scoops that we would put up to our ears in the past. Remember those? Okay. And he was talking to someone through those lovely U-shaped scoops. And he looked at me. He takes the phone, covers the microphone, and says, "It was only one planet." I hadn't talked to him for 5 years. I hadn't talked to him about
and it stayed in there.
Yeah, 4 years. I hadn't talked to him about any of this. It stayed in his head. I was living
rent free, baby. Rent free.
Yeah.
I live rent free in a couple of people's heads.
Yes, so do I, Don. It's troublesome. But the bottom line was that he had remembered that, and it stuck with him. And I think, well, he's passed away now, but I'm sure if he was around, he would acknowledge that academia can be harsh sometimes. But I knew it was going to be I knew it was populated. I knew it's a populated universe because you look at all the many, many millions of life forms that have come and gone on our planet. Okay, there are more species that have went extinct on our planet than that are alive right now, potentially. So if you look at that, say a species is formed on our planet, comes from, say, a common ancestor. Well, that branches off. You get a branch that's called radiative adaptation, where you have all these changes that occur in subsequent life forms, and they become a distinct branch from the earlier ancestor, like we did, right? Well, some of those work great, okay? Some of those not so great, like Neanderthal. Okay, Neanderthal wasn't selected for continuance because there were problems with it, with the Neanderthal requirements and the environment pressures that were put on it. It couldn't handle it. The competition with other human hominids at the time made it less capable. So eventually it died out. It didn't just die, but when they finally died, no more were being made, basically.
Well, that's not entirely true, Mark.
Well, there is.
We all have, most of us have, anywhere between 2 to 4% DNA from Neanderthal.
That is correct. I have family members that have Neanderthal DNA. Okay. But that just means that it was absorbed into other strains, other radiative, adaptive.
No, that means that they had a little belly rubbing together. That's what it means.
In part, I think that's most part. Yeah. No, in fact, you're probably correct. There was probably.
Damn right, I'm correct.
Yeah.
They don't call me the silverback for nothing.
I understand that, and I'm not going to make the joke that's a follow-on to that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think that, if we look at, again, and tonight's topic, this is a great show, I'll tell you, because you guys are right on the money with this, that the anniversary of Apollo 11, okay, the amazing achievements that we made. At the time, we thought they were amazing. Now we look back at them and say they're archaic. And in fact, now we don't have an exact same capability to reach the moon, which became the mantra for we never went to the moon because we can't go there now. How are we supposed to be able to go there in the past? Because we can't, and because we did. We also don't have a space shuttle, but we know we did. Okay, that's the more recent invention. We don't have a way to get to space right now in something that can come back and land like an airplane. We don't have that anymore. Okay?
See, I'm a big fan of what you said about robotics and things, because I think you would probably agree with me that if it can be done safely and possibly cheaper, isn't a good enough reason to send another helicopter to Mars, et cetera, is to answer these stupid conspiracy theories and move on as a society.
Oh, gosh, these people are out there. Yeah, you know.
I'll tell you what's really scary. Not only can they reproduce, they also vote. Jesus.
It just seems like, the face, all of that stuff, right? All these anomalies that have been found, all we have to do is have Elon or somebody send that stuff up there and just answer these, even to the moon, answer these questions.
Yeah. And so, okay, let's stick to that for a minute. Okay. The moon, orb in the sky. Okay. Sphere, curved shadow because it's round. We have people that think the Earth is not. Mm-hmm. They think it's flat. Ugh. I mean, I you know what? It's intriguing to me that there are people that will look you in the face and say, Earth is flat, I know it. And then I'll say, have you ever flown on a jet plane? Yes, of course. Okay. Now, from that point on, they're incapable of learning anything about the math, because obviously that's probably something they failed in, because they don't understand pathing on a sphere. And when you have to explain pathing on a sphere, then this is the look you get.
Mark, there's no fix for stupid. Okay?
You can't fix stupid, says Bill Engvall. And I'm right. I agree with you on that. I think it was Engvall. Okay. But again, this is a diversion a little bit. But on the moon, let's consider that we can look at, on the moon. Again, I go back to it, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter Quick Map, LRO Quick Map. All right, everybody look that up. Go to it. Zoom in. You can see the moon this close. You can actually make these things. This is the Apollo 15 lunar landing site that I printed on my 3D printer. Okay, you can see it's beautiful. It has all the detail and everything on there. Where did I get this? Well, because we have all the digital terrain maps, all the digital elevation maps of the moon. Whoa, who'd think? We got them from the LRO. You can print them out. You can print out all the data about it. There it is. Look, ACT, and there's the latitude, longitude, the location where it is, and all this detail. I print it all out, and I make these craters for people anywhere who want them. What's your favorite crater? I can make it for you, okay? For instance, now this isn't a sales pitch. What I'm getting at is the data is available. And this represents a level of data we have just never had before. Okay, the ability to look at the moon a variety of ways. LRO Quick Map is where you can get all this data. And LRO Quick Map also allows you to zoom in so far that you can see things the size of a shed on the surface of the moon. You can see the lunar lander descent stages. You can see, as I said, the tracks left by the rovers. You can see the rovers. Okay. Yes, they're little white dots at the end of a trail that looks weird, a tiny little trail, but you can see it all. You can I actually discovered and found, not discovered, but I found when the lunar module came back from the surface, it separates, it basically separates off from, here's the command module they dock to. They separate it off. Well, where does this thing go? Well, it goes into a long spiraling orbit on the moon while this thing brings our people home. It goes into a spiraling orbit on the moon until it crashes on the moon. I found those crash sites. You can see the lunar modules broken apart and scattered debris all over the moon where it hit the moon. Those sites are out there too. You can see all that. So
no matter where we go, we leave our trash.
Wherever we go, we leave our trash. You're right. Hey,
so with this technology and what you've been doing, currently, does Mark D have any anonymous? That's the wrong word. Thanks.
Anomaly.
Thank you. On the moon that are like well, God, I just don't know what that is. You've seen stuff and it's like, wow, I don't know what that is at this point.
As far as the moon goes, I've looked at the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. I mean, I'm telling you, I have no life. Okay, I stare at that thing and I look at it, and next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was supposed to be in bed at around 11 because I have a doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock. So I show up at the appointment like this. Hi, man. So it's hard, but I've gone through all the data, and if you look at that particular facility, and it's online, again, you should look it up, all of you, because you'll end up losing so much time on this if you're interested in this stuff. And there's many different layers that you can bring up. You can bring up all the Apollo landing sites. You can bring up all the special geologic features on the moon. You can bring up the mineral maps from Clementine. You can bring up the Clementine imagery from Clementine, okay, sugar cube size camera. Okay, you can bring up all these different things, and you can actually study the different lunar missions. You can see every bit of returned science data that came from the moon. I say every bit that's been published. I mean, there are terabytes of data from all these systems. And so it has to be pared down to be something manageable. Otherwise, it would take you 4 days to load the Lunar Quick Map initial screen, wouldn't it? But you can see all this data. So I've gone through that. I looked at the minerals on the moon. I've looked at the L-Cross results. Remember L-Cross? They dropped a rocket stage into a dark crater called Cabeus on the moon's south pole, and they looked for water that might have been splashed out of it. Not water that was standing water, but ice that was bound up in the bottom of this permanently shadowed crater. And by the way, a crater that Clementine discovered might be a permanently shadowed crater. All right. So we build on the backs of other missions. And so L-Cross crashed into that part on purpose. And deep in that crater, they studied the spectra, what was thrown up. Again, the spectra using a spectrograph. Okay. It saw the individual signatures inside that spectra of water vapor and water. So water was thrown up from this impact. And so, in other words, there is water. And that's when people said, yay, we can actually build a base on the moon because we have tons of water available. Well, it turns out that it's not just in those permanently shadowed craters after all. It's actually also throughout the moon's surface, throughout the lunar regolith, the soil on the moon. There's water bound up with different particles in that soil. Not as much as in a permanently shadowed crater, but it's there. So there could be a sifting process I could see on a lunar base that's constantly sifting the soil and extracting the water. And by the way, at the same time, extracting helium-3, extracting titanium oxide, extracting other minerals that are on the minerals and elements from the moon's surface that are valuable to us.
What about radioactivity, Mark? Is there any? Now, obviously, from the naked sun, all right, there's radioactivity. But what about in the lunar soil?
Lunar soil has been pelted by billions of years of cosmic radiation and ultraviolet radiation. But cosmic rays and ultraviolet rays, they do damage to the soils, but they don't cause it to become irradiated. When you talk about radiation, you're talking about ionizing radiation created by plutonium, radiation created by uranium. Okay, when the moon was created, the moon was a molten mass. And plutonium, uranium, and those heavier elements, they were differentiated toward the center more, meaning while it was molten, the heavier elements drifted toward the center. The moon's geology, similar but very different from the Earth. That's the best way to say it. So that differentiation occurred on Earth as well, but Earth had a lot of mixing going on as well in our turbulent early planet, because the Earth was spinning rapidly, very, very rapidly. As a matter of fact, a day used to be 4 days, and 1 day was 4 hours long on Earth at one point. Okay, so that mixing brought some of these things up to the outer layers, That's why we have uranium in our crust now, the thin shell sitting over our completely molten interior. You're all sitting above molten interior that's thousands of miles in depth. This is scary. At Yellowstone, you're only 2 miles from that stuff. It's beneath your feet. Okay, so when you think about this differentiation, takes much of those radioactive elements toward the center, and as they get near to each other, they actually basically can start what's called a natural reactor. They can actually begin to interact with each other and end up making the entire center of the moon or the planet hot. And they do. And there are rare cases of like a natural reactor that occurs here on our planet. There's a location. I can't remember the location, unfortunately, because we only just thought of it. But there is a location where there was a natural reactor here on Earth. And we started seeing that happen here on Earth with certain concentrations of maybe it might have been uranium. Okay. And a natural reactor you find by noticing that the radioactive materials in that region have become something different caused by interaction with other radioactive materials. And that's something that helps you gauge the radioactivity amount in that area. And that's what we saw. So the radioactivity in the surface of the moon, only thing we care about is what's coming from the sun at this point. We don't have to worry about anything in the lunar soil. What we have to worry about with the lunar soil is the health danger. Now, right now, with our capability, we could create a moon base, put it in a lava tube on the moon, because like in Hawaii, you have these lava tubes where lava once flowed through them. Well, they made these beautiful walls. Okay, and they have stalactites and stalagmites in them and stuff. You have these beautiful walls, and it's a rigid, nice tube, basically, and it protects you from the outside. Well, the moon has them too, but they're billions of years old, unchanged. And so if you go, there's certain craters that have pits in them, and they have like a window into this subterranean little thing that seems to drop down. Mars has these too. And you can actually imagine that you can move a little further to one side or the other once you're down in there. And now you're going through this window, and now you're in a lava tube on the moon, and you can put your base down there. What would your base consist of? Your base would consist of potentially an inflated-tat, okay, an inflatable habitat. Okay, this inflatable habitat is something that has to be inflated one time, and then you have to create oxygen to put in that inflatable habitat beyond what you already have when you inflate it. How would you do that? You would actually mine lunar soil and generate O2, breathable oxygen. Now on Mars, where we have a CO2 atmosphere, that's easier because we have the MOXIE unit on Perseverance, the rover, which showed that in a car battery-sized object, we could generate O2 from the carbon dioxide atmosphere. So we have the capability of making an oxygenated environment long before astronauts even got there.
Well, this is something I just read about too, that going underground with Mars, and the same thing with the moon. It makes total sense because it's easier to control your internal atmosphere doing it that way than on the surface.
And it protects you from the harsh ultraviolet radiation that kills us.
And the shit that hits the lunar surface. And well, bringing that up, I have to point out, because it's a conversation going on in the chat right now, is that, one thing that was discovered is impact craters only go so deep, and they don't go any deeper on the moon. And it's something that's kind of confounding as to why is that. And I'm going to go and throw it at you to answer that question, because we were talking about it in the chat.
Yeah, in short, the answer is they're not all the same depth. In fact, I'll say it again. Go back to the LRO Quick Map, because among the tools that you have on the LRO Quick Map is a line you can draw across the lunar surface, and over here you get a map of the elevations you're crossing. And as you move your cursor around, you can actually see on the map where all these different elevations are. And you can see that every single crater, almost every single crater, has a different depth. What people think they see as the same depth is a perspective, it's not a trick of light and shadow. It's a trick of the distance of the moon. It's so far away, you can't see a difference of 2 miles on the moon. Okay? You just can't really see that unless you have a high-powered telescope, and then you're only looking at a small part of a crater. When you look at a small part of a crater and you compare it to another one, it looks, hey, those walls look about the same height. They're not. They're very different. I've seen craters. In fact, when I printed this guy right here, okay, right, this guy has mountains. See him? Okay, well, then there's this plain down here, and then this right here, this is what's called a rill. It's a collapsed lava tube, okay, on the moon. That used to be a lava tube, and the ceiling collapsed, and so it ends up looking like this little pit.
A groove in the moon, right?
Yeah, this is Hadley Rill. Okay, well, yeah, it looks like a groove. Well, okay, that rill is definitely deeper than the surface surrounding it, okay? And the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter Quick Map can show you the whole profile of that thing, okay? And the craters are generally thought to be the same depth because they see a flat bottom, okay? But I can tell you this. I've seen craters with flat bottoms that are at this level, then craters with flat bottoms that are even higher like this. Where's the flat bottom coming from? That's the question. They think it's going down to some level that's sort of a base layer on the moon, okay? And that's not true. What's actually happening is it's actually going down to the meteor penetrates deep into the moon. Lava wells up onto the surface of the moon and spreads and then finds its own level, like water in a glass finds its own level. No matter which way you angle it, it finds its level. Well, it finds.
Do you believe there's still active magma in the moon?
No, I think that right now, from our understanding now, there's not really any current evidence that tells us that there is an active magma chamber anywhere on the moon. Maybe near the center, it's a little, not Mark's center, but near the center of the moon, it might be a little bit molten. And this is why, for instance, that phrase was uttered years ago that was entirely incorrect, that when they crashed the
Bong.
Yes, they said that when they crashed that was a stage, this 5th stage that had the lunar module in it onto the moon, which they did every time to test the seismic signals coming to the Apollo seismic sites. They said it rang like a bell. What does that mean? If we look at the moon, here's the moon, okay? If you look at that moon shape, all right, the sound was emanated here where this thing hit, and it goes all the way through to the other side where it hits here and then bounces back to the other side. So that's what this means. Bing, bing, bing. It went back and forth. How did that happen? Well, it doesn't happen on the Earth the same way because we have a mantle which is like plastic molten, and we have an outer core which is fully molten and an inner core which is solid. Okay? All those different media change the way sound waves work on our planet. But on the moon, the sound waves are almost pure. They go back and forth with no impediments. That gave rise to that phrase incorrectly taken and run with, that said the moon rang like a bell. Yes, that meant that it hit this side of the crust and then went through and hit this side of the crust and went through and hit this side of the crust again. Bing, 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 went back and forth. That happened. But it only happened because the moon is almost solid. It didn't happen because the moon is hollow. It didn't happen because that wouldn't happen at all. They said it rang like a bell, so the moon must be hollow. Well, all bells set up a standing wave. And bells work only because there's an opening where the sound eventually comes out. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that standing wave that you say you set it up, well, if you set it up, it has to come out into what? Well, it's going to be a vacuum, but there's going to be a vacuum in there, and sound doesn't go through a vacuum. There's way too many things wrong with that whole approach, right? But keep in mind that if you have a hollow object on Earth, okay, and you hit it on a hollow, say it's hollow. I actually have one back there. I actually have a moon I made that I made as a thin shell because I didn't want to use up all my resin on my 3D STL printer in order to make it. So you hit it, it goes fuck. It doesn't go bong. Okay, it doesn't ring. Okay, a solid object does. And if you want to know how that works, right in Pennsylvania, there's a place called Ringing Rocks State Park.
Pennsylvania, Don?
It's
Yeah, Don, that's your
I
stomping ground.
heard.
You go there with a hammer.
There's also a place in Pennsylvania named Blue Balls.
Nice.
It's right near Pennsylvania. If you go to Ringing Rock State Park, bring a hammer. In fact, they might give you a little hammer. I can't remember. And they encourage you to hit the rocks because the rocks go ding, 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 ding. They ring. Why? Are they hollow? No. Hollow doesn't ring unless it has a hole in the bottom and it's making a standing wave. Okay? They ring like an anvil rings. An anvil hitting with a hammer, bing. Okay? That's a solid. And Ringing Rock State Park showcases these solid rocks of a particular composition that ring beautifully.
Hey, before we run out of time here, because we have so much to talk about, and I could go back to that moon show, but did you watch the video about the Dawn probe when it saw that pyramid on the dwarf planet that I don't know how to pronounce, Ceres?
Ceres.
Right, and this popped up again, and Jerry sent it to you, from what I understand, that they show something odd on that thing, something very odd.
Did you send that to me?
Yes, I did earlier, and it shows you saw it. So don't you back out.
I'm certainly not going to back out. I'm going to go see where it is. In my email?
Yeah, no, on Facebook Messenger.
Oh, on Facebook Messenger. All right, I will check that out right now, and I'm so good at this that I can do it without wasting too much time.
That's fine, and I like to follow up a bit with the technology that you use to make the thing that you showed us and all that regarding that moon show.
Yes.
Is there current information that shows some of those stills that are talked about in that moon show in a clearer fashion, in a better way to either answer it or at least show it in maybe a different light that, well, maybe we weren't exactly looking at what we thought we were?
When I was doing that show, I'm trying to find your message here, Jerry. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's okay, because you'll be on again and we can talk about it the next time.
Wait, there's Jerry Kissel. Hold on. Let's see. This is what you said. Black Pyramid.
Yeah, that's the video I sent you from Mark.
Okay. Well,
I guess what happened here, to do a quick one on this, is that the normal media was doing reports on it. And then they supposedly scrubbed all those off the net, and then they changed information about what they were seeing, and it was all just killed. Now that's the conspiracy theory.
Okay, this Black Pyramid, that's not Ceres in the video.
Okay.
Yeah, Ceres is round. It's a sphere. Okay, right. Ceres is the biggest dwarf planet in our solar system.
Of course, like Oumuamua, this could just be a computer blah blah blah, right? That they're.
I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing what you're seeing. And you could have put that video up if you wanted to. I didn't know.
Have you ever heard of this before?
Yes, I have seen that. I have seen some different anomalies, not this particular one.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I'm not sure.
But it was covered. It was covered by a whole lot of newspapers and things, and it went nowhere.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which asteroid we're talking about here. Does it tell you? I don't. I'm looking at the video, so
no, it's fine.
Sorry to the audience. With this. They're calling it an asteroid, but it looks like an asteroid for sure. I just don't know which one it is. I can research this and
all right. Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Well, there's the other one that's mentioned in that video too, is the Hideo Takakawa one that had a photograph of it where one end of it was smooth, and then the next time it was photographed, there was something that appeared spherical on the end of it, and that really kind of threw me too. Like, what the heck is that?
Okay, this is.
Looks like something crashed into
99 RQ-36 is the name of the asteroid with this supposed thing on it. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm looking at this other thing here. Yeah, fascinating. I mean, let me just give you my theory on all this anyway. If we are willing to believe that they're here, which I do, then I'm also willing to believe that they've looked at other places within our solar system. So could we find something out there that they may not expect we would find? Sure. I don't doubt that. And just like the, was it TMA-1, Tycho Magnetic Anomaly 1 in 2001, Space Odyssey, the monolith buried under Tycho crater. That was alien, right? And it's a movie, of course. But if you think about it, I suspect that if they're in our solar system poking around, it's possible they've set up shop somewhere else, or, while one team was on Earth probing people, okay, Cartman from South Park, the other team could have been doing other science. And again, I think that most likely these creatures, extraterrestrial creatures, are probably scientists, because that's one of the reasons they would be here, is to find another place like theirs. And they're probably carbon-based like us, because carbon is the most likely life-fostering element in the entire periodic table. There's none others. Now, if you look at the column that carbon is in, it's right below carbon is silicon. So people say, what about silicon-based life? That's why they do that. That's why people say that, because silicon is the next most likely thing, like carbon. It's not along the row, it's the column. Right below carbon in that column is the next most likely capable supporter of life. Okay, if we look at carbon as a supporter of life. And so, unfortunately, silicon makes these very tenacious bonds and doesn't like to break them. So silicon-based life is probably not on the table. It's too robust. Carbon, in all of you right now, carbon bonds are being made and broken by the tens of thousands in you right now. And that's something silicon can't do. So we need that variability, that flexibility, that capability. And that's the reason why carbon, for instance, is called the granddaddy of all elements, because it has that capability that no other element does. And that, I think, is, to me, and was the linchpin for why I am a carbon bigot. Okay? Yep. I'm a carbon bigot.
You're not interested in those silicon life forms.
No. Silicon life forms just can't possibly.
I was going to make a joke about silicon, but then I thought, no, if you're smart, you
well,
won't.
Silicon is our friend.
Don, it has its place. It has
right
its
about
place.
right here.
So in the same way that they were able to find, in essence, the 3I Atlas as a comet, because it looks different because it's longer. Is that how they're hopefully going to find what may hit us at some point?
Oh, well, okay. You got to keep in mind that program is different. Okay,
right.
We have the Sentry list that's maintained by the I forget who maintains it, but it's a list of objects close to the Earth that everything on that list may present a threat, but they're not sure. Like Apophis was on there for a while. Okay, no longer. Okay, and so when it zips by, I'm looking forward to seeing it with my telescope, and I don't have a danger that's going to come at us like this. It's something I'm not going to expect to see. Oh, here it comes, guys! Look, there it is. No, we're not going to see that. Okay, but the Sentry list is maintained, and there's different near Earth NEO, near Earth object programs out there with telescopes looking into the sky all the time, looking for things passing through, looking for things in likely places. And so I think it's just a very important program to keep up because we're eventually going to find the asteroid that might otherwise kill us.
We have
Well,
1 minute.
guys,
One minute.
as much as this has been, as always, Marc
Fascinating.
Antonio, fascinating. We are
Fascinating.
practically out of time. Are you going to be appearing at the MUFON Symposium, Marc?
No, that's happening fairly soon. I'm not going this year. I am going to Phoenix on the 24th or the 31st because I'm going to be administering the observatories, installing some new cameras. And then I'm doing a talk for Phoenix MUFON. Let me get that focusing view. Yeah, so
okay.
I'll be out there. And then I think I'm doing a talk this coming weekend at a very big place down on the shoreline here for a whole bunch of, I think, fairly high-end people. And then I'll be in Nova Scotia for the Shag Harbor event in October.
Okay. Well, gang, guess what?
Guess
We
we're done
are
here.
out of time. Marc Dantonio, thank you so much. Stick by for just a minute.
I'm a
And that's
blabbermouth.
it, ladies and gentlemen. Thursday, UAP Crossfire, right here on KGRA-DB. We'll see you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
God bless Sam and
You
Dean
guys.
Winchester.